Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Just want to give a little preface to this next video. It's a follow-up to the video I just released where I featured 3 new arrivals to 3MA Audio in Houston. The Burmester BA71 speakers, really cool. The EgglestonWorks Andra, I think it's the Andra 3, really cool. And then the Burmester 909 amplifier, huge 600 watt amplifier, stereo amplifier, hooked up to Rockport's Cygnus. Really cool. They were in 3 different rooms. So while I was there, I did some audio clips that I'm going to share with you. But one thing, as I always say with these videos, you can't tell a whole lot from YouTube clips for a few reasons. Number one, the mic I'm using is cell phone mic. And even some of these, this goes for almost any YouTube channel, because I did some research on some of these binaural microphones, even high dollar ones. They don't really even do a good job under 100 hertz capturing information. So you got to balance that when you're listening to it, because what typically happens, well, let me not even tell you what happens. Let me let you listen to these clips, and then on the flip side, I'll come back and give you some context to what I heard live, because in this particular instance, I heard more of a delta than I normally hear between what my impressions live versus when I heard the recording afterwards. So let me let you hear these, and then I'll circle back on the other side with my comments and context.
Painted to pure perfection, we had a real connection. Bodies aching, overtaken. You kept me at a distance, not asking any questions. Fingers pressing, learning lessons. Beautiful lines on a Friday night, starting to wonder where we lost the magic. Head in the clouds, talking so loud, all I hear is static. I'm not a material girl, everything in your world just feels like plastic. Wearing your crown is putting me down, you just want painted to pure perfection. We had a real connection. Bodies aching, overtaken. You kept me at a distance, not asking any questions. Fingers pressing, learning lessons. Beautiful lines on a Friday night, starting to wonder where we lost the magic. Head in the clouds, talking so loud, all I hear is static. I'm not a material girl, everything in your world just feels like plastic. Wearing your crown is putting me down, you just want the power. You're not really down for love. Tell me how you've been, and tell me what you've seen, and tell me that you'd like to see me too. 'Cause my heart is full of no blood, and my cup is full of no love. I couldn't take another sip, even if
What's up? How's it going? That's all right. I'll just edit out.
It's not too
The way you change your heart, when you change your mind, makes you change your ways with me. See, I I cannot deny it. Everything you do is blindsiding me. Someone pull the trigger. Did I pull the trigger? Did I pull the trigger? Did I bury the girl? Like that you burned down paradise within the blink of a random eye. Makes me wonder what's left for hell to look like, for hell to look like. Wanting me to beg and plead every Sunday on my knees. Something you don't feel right, you don't treat me right, you don't treat me like the queen you keep telling me you see.
Okay, guys, hopefully you enjoyed those clips. I know it's a limited sample size, but I didn't want to make an hour-long video and doing so many different systems. So basically what I wanted to get out the way is, number one, let's throw out the room with the Rockport and the Burmester amp for right now. The reason being is twofold. I didn't do similar tracks in that room. And number two, that room, for my taste and just in general, I've learned over time, just has some issues. Maybe it's because of the glass wall or something, that the mid-range sounds a little bit opaque to me, and so I don't like to judge equipment in that room until it gets moved to other rooms, because there's a big delta when they move it. So if those tracks sounded good to you, it's going to sound even better, in a different room when they finally move them, or in your own room if you buy them. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions or spend too much time. And plus, I know the Rockport speakers really well, and I'm sure that amp is phenomenal, but the Rockport Cygnus is game over type speaker, phenomenal. There's no need to really talk about that too much. The two really new arrivals were the EgglestonWorks Andra and the Burmester BA71. And they were quite different, both live when I listened to them in those two rooms, both small rooms, near field listening. Obviously not identical, and the equipment's not identical, but you could kind of tell the flavor of the two speakers, at least live. I'll give you some context that may not be as noticeable in the tracks recorded. The BA71 Burmester, first thing I was surprised about, to be honest, is that I thought the Burmester speakers, at least the ones I've seen before, even at shows or in magazines, were more aesthetically wowing. This one's more along the lines of industrial version, multiple drivers, built for a specific purpose. And to their credit, I think they did a great job of putting purpose and performance over aesthetics. Sometimes you think Burmester, you would expect it to be MBL showy type speaker, but in their case, I think they put performance and purpose behind the engineering than the aesthetics. But when you got up close onto it, then you could kind of see the Burmester quality and whatnot. But from afar, you would not have thought that's Burmester sexiness in the speaker. But when you heard it, it was quite ear-popping in terms of very much of a fast, detailed, and wowing type sound that a lot of people will find very much their end game type speaker that they want. And one of the reasons, I think, is because they're using this AMT tweeter, which is notorious for being a little bit tough to mate with other drivers without it calling too much of attention to itself. But they did a smart thing of using a lot of small drivers with it. And obviously with the crossover, cabinet construction, everything involved, they put performance over aesthetics and really created something that works really well with the AMT tweeter, such that, yeah, it still called attention to itself, but in a good way, in terms of it was a very refined, hyper-analytical type speaker. Very fast, detailed, very much of a fun speaker to listen to, and will be exactly what some people prefer in a speaker, something that really wows them and sets itself apart from the mass of normal box speakers. Just had a really fast, detailed, enhancing treble type performance, which as people get older, they lose hearing in their upper end. So a speaker that really can be refined without being artificially tilted up or like cheap horns do, those sometimes do attract people with losing hearing, but this was a more refined analytical top end that I think will be very appealing to many people. Now, when I went to the Andra, I was immediately almost the other end of the spectrum. Felt like I was listening to music. I felt it was a more musical and more coherent. The three drivers there seemed to just present the music, but not in as much of a wowy, fast and detailed manner, but more in a coherent, pleasing manner with a little bit more lower octave in the bass. That bigger bass driver was noticeable. But when I listened to the two tracks recording, it was kind of funny. I remember being a little bit more impressed by the Andra on the lower end live, but then when I heard the recordings, I thought that the Burmester sounded cleaner, faster, a little more my taste in terms of a recorded bass. So I think what happens, like I mentioned, the microphone, when you get lower bass information, sometimes makes it more one note and almost slows down the impression, more bloated sounding than it really sounded live. So that's an important thing to note. If you kind of noticed a difference in those two speakers, I would say the Andras in a room would probably be better in a room where you don't have a sub and more versatile in bigger rooms. The Burmester BA71 has a great ceiling in terms of performance, and especially if you made it with a sub. You know, the Andras would be probably my choice if I only had to buy for a variety of room sizes. But if I could get the Burmester with a sub, then I think the ceiling of the performance there is really pretty high. So kind of giving you my thoughts in that limited auditioning. But as well, I want to play these same tracks on my system for another reason, as I'll come back around after you listen to them and tell you.